The sharp crash of glass shattered the bustling dinner rush at the Golden Spoon restaurant. For a moment, all the noise seemed to freeze, until the clatter of silverware slowly resumed. Samantha Morgan dropped to her knees, hands trembling as she picked up the jagged shards of a broken water glass. Her calloused fingers moved carefully, trying not to cut herself, but also not wanting to waste another second. Across the room, Frank, the manager with eyes as cold as forged steel, was already watching her. His gaze alone was enough to make Samantha's chest tighten. "That's the third one this month, Morgan." His voice rang out like an alarm bell, loud enough for the nearby customers to hear. "Coming out of your paycheck," he snapped, with a twisted smile, almost relishing in her public humiliation. Some customers glanced over, their expressions caught between curiosity and sympathy. Most, however, looked away, pretending not to notice. Samantha's cheeks flushed with shame, her throat tightening. She wanted to say something, to stand up for herself, but she couldn't afford to lose this job. Not when her mother, battling multiple sclerosis, depended on her income to afford life-saving medication. In Samantha's world, survival meant measuring every cent. "I'm sorry, Frank. It won't happen again," she mumbled, dropping the broken pieces into the trash before quickly returning to the tables still waiting for her. At 27, Samantha's hands bore the marks of years in food service. Small burns, thickened skin, and silent sacrifices. Yet, this had never been her dream. 4 years ago, she was a second-year medical student, her white coat still crisp, her stethoscope a symbol of promise. She had been at the top of her pediatrics class, praised by professors. "Your way with children is rare," one mentor had told her, but that life was shattered on a cold, rainy night when her mother collapsed in their cramped apartment. The diagnosis came fast and hard: multiple sclerosis. First came the bills, then her mother's inability to work, and finally the impossible decision: finish medical school or become her mother's full-time caregiver. In truth, it wasn't a choice. It was surrender. "Table 12 needs more bread. Where's your head today?" Frank's voice cut through her memories like a blade. "Coming right up," Samantha called back, grabbing a bread basket and weaving between crowded tables. Her lower back ached. Working double shifts, from noon to close, had become her norm. The other waitresses, mostly college students, could pick and choose their hours, but Samantha, she had to choose between clocking in or skipping her mother's meds. Jessica, the newest server, 19 years old and full of youthful confidence, approached her with a mischievous smile. "Sam, could you cover my section for 20 minutes? Brad just texted. He's outside. I swear I'll make it up to you." Before Samantha could speak, Jessica added, "Remember last week when you stepped out to call your mom's doctor? I covered for you then." Samantha paused. It was true. She had stepped away briefly for a phone call about her mother's lab results. But it was only 7 minutes, not 20. And Jessica knew that. The girl had used Samantha's own sense of duty and guilt as leverage, a subtle manipulation wrapped in sugar-coated innocence. And even though Samantha knew exactly what it was, she hesitated, not out of anger, but from a tired resentment of the cruel system that forced them into such different realities. Fine. But just 20 minutes, not a second more. Samantha finally agreed, as if signing a deal she didn't want. Jessica beamed, twirled on her heel, and vanished out the front door, leaving Samantha buried under twice the workload. She moved swiftly between tables, refilling drinks, clearing plates, scribbling down orders. Her feet throbbed in worn-out shoes that should have been replaced 3 months ago. But every time she got close to saving up, something else came up. Her mother's new prescription, the water heater breaking, rent going up again. From across the room, Frank kept a hawk's eye on her, narrowing his gaze like he was just waiting for her to fail. Since Samantha had dared to question the restaurant's new tip pooling policy, which consistently left her with less than she earned, Frank had been especially harsh. By 9 p.m., Jessica was still missing, and Samantha could barely feel her legs. Frank pinned the new schedule to the break room corkboard. As usual, Samantha waited until the crowd thinned before checking it. Her heart dropped. She usually had 5 dinner shifts and 2 lunch shifts. Next week, only 3 dinners. Frank, there must be a mistake. I'm missing 4 shifts next week. Her voice carried a hint of panic, though she tried to stay composed. Frank didn't even look up. No mistake. We're overstaffed next week, but I've worked those shifts for over a year. I need those hours to survive. Finally, Frank looked at her, his face blank and uncaring. Jessica needs more hours, she asked, and I agreed. But she lives with her parents. Last week she said she was saving up for spring break in Cancun. Samantha replied, struggling to keep her voice level. Not my problem, schedule's final. Frank turned back to his screen. Samantha stood frozen, mentally calculating what losing 4 shifts would mean, nearly half her income gone, when her mother's neurologist had just warned that any disruption in medication could cause rapid progression. There was no room to fall apart. Not now. She took a deep breath, pulled herself together, and walked back onto the floor. She would find a way. She always did. At her section, a new table had been seated, a well-dressed man in a tailored suit and a young girl in a wheelchair. The girl sat silently, her head bowed, long blonde hair hiding most of her face. But Samantha noticed the tension in her small shoulders, the white-knuckle grip on her chair's arms. Other servers steered clear, not out of cruelty, but fear of the unknown, of the time it might take. It infuriated Samantha. She stepped forward with a warm, genuine smile. "Welcome to the Golden Spoon. I'm Samantha, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." The man looked up, wary but not unkind. The girl didn't move. "Thank you," he said, voice calm. "I'm Lucas, and this is my daughter, Emma." Samantha crouched slightly to meet Emma's eye level. "It's nice to meet you, Emma. Can I get you something to drink while you look over the menu?" Emma glanced up briefly, and in that brief moment Samantha saw it. The quiet storm behind those eyes, the weight of a fight few would ever notice. She recognized that look. It was the same one she had worn too many nights to count. This table, this small moment, was about to change her life in ways she never imagined. Elsewhere in the restaurant, the clatter of silverware and soft chatter continued. But as Samantha returned with drinks and saw Emma flinch at the sound of metal on porcelain, her instincts kicked in. Sensory sensitivity, she thought, recalling her pediatrics rotation. Without a word, Samantha subtly stepped to block the busy walkway, becoming a living buffer. "Here you go," she said, gently placing a glass of water in front of Lucas and a strawberry lemonade with a flexible straw for Emma. "Would you like to order now, or need a few more minutes?" Lucas nodded gratefully. "We're ready. I'll have the grilled salmon with asparagus." He looked at Emma, who remained silent. After a pause, he added, "And Emma will have the chicken tenders with mashed potatoes, please." "Excellent choices," Samantha said as she scribbled down the order. But her eyes noticed Emma's fingers tracing the picture of mac and cheese on the kids' menu, lingering. Samantha knelt beside the wheelchair again. "You know, our chef makes the best mac and cheese in town. 3 cheeses and crispy breadcrumbs on top. Want to swap?" Emma looked up, surprised by the question and the respect behind it. She gave the tiniest nod. "Mac and cheese it is." Samantha smiled and adjusted the order. She caught Lucas watching her again, his expression thoughtful and unexpectedly gentle. At the kitchen window, Frank intercepted her. "Why are you wasting time at table 7? Jessica's back and complaining her section's neglected." "I'm handling my section," Samantha replied calmly. "Besides, Jessica said she'd be gone 20 minutes. It's been over an hour." Frank narrowed his eyes, voice colder. "Stop babying the kid in the wheelchair and turn your tables faster. We're not a charity." Samantha clenched her jaw. Her medical instincts flared. She knew what mattered. "Their order's in. I'm checking my other tables now." She turned and walked away without another word. When Samantha returned to Lucas and Emma's table, she quietly observed, Emma sat stiffly, hands resting on her lap, while Lucas tried to make conversation. There wasn't tension between them, but there was distance, as if they had once been close but had somehow grown apart. When their food arrived, Samantha noticed Emma struggling to use her fork. Her right hand trembled slightly, making it difficult to control her movements. A piece of macaroni kept slipping off before reaching her mouth. "Excuse me," Lucas called softly, his gaze full of helplessness as he looked at his daughter. "Could you help?" Without hesitation, Samantha gently pulled up a chair and sat beside Emma. "Mind if I sit with you for a moment, Emma?" Her tone was not pitying, but professional, genuine and respectful. Emma nodded, cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "You know," Samantha began, taking the fork in her hand, "when I was in med school, they taught us that the human body is like a complex machine. Sometimes one part just needs a little maintenance, while the rest still works perfectly fine." She gently adjusted Emma's grip, helping her stabilize her wrist. "Your brain is working just fine. It's just that the signals are taking a detour on their way to your hand." Emma looked up, her eyes lighting up with understanding, not pity, but trust. "Were you a doctor?" she asked quietly, curious. "Almost." Samantha smiled, helping Emma scoop up a successful bite. "I was studying to become a pediatrician, a doctor for kids." "Why did you stop?" Emma's voice was soft, but sincere. Lucas seemed caught off guard. Clearly, this was the first time he had heard his daughter initiate a conversation like that. "My mom got sick," Samantha said gently, "and I had to be there for her. Sometimes life takes us down a different road than we planned." She helped Emma with another bite, then gradually let go, allowing the girl to try on her own. Emma carefully lifted a forkful of macaroni. Success. A small, radiant smile spread across her face. "I had an accident," Emma said suddenly. "That's why I can't walk well now." "Well, you're doing great with that fork," Samantha replied as she stood up. "I bet you're good at lots of other things, too." "I can draw," Emma said, "but only with my left hand now." "That's even more impressive," Samantha said sincerely. "Most people can't draw at all, even with their dominant hand." Across the dining room, Samantha could feel Frank's angry gaze burning into her back. She knew she had stayed at this table longer than usual. "I'll be right back. Enjoy your mac and cheese, little artist," Samantha said with a smile as she turned to go. But then something made her stop. Laughter, a clear, bell-like laugh from Emma. It was a brief moment, but powerful enough to dissolve the exhaustion in Samantha's chest. A few nearby diners even smiled instinctively, as though touched by something pure. Lucas caught Samantha's eyes across the room, gave a small nod, and silently mouthed, "Thank you." His expression wasn't just grateful, it held something else. Hope, a fragile but unmistakable glimmer. Throughout the rest of the meal, even as she juggled her other tables, Samantha returned to Emma whenever she could. She didn't just check on the food, she asked about Emma's artwork, her favorite colors, her dreams. By dessert, Emma was chatting cheerfully, telling Samantha about her art teacher who visited her at home since she couldn't attend school yet. When Lucas asked for the check, Samantha brought it along with a small set of crayons and a coloring page featuring the restaurant's Golden Spoon logo on the house. She winked at Emma, as if they shared a sweet little secret. Lucas handed her his credit card without looking at the total. As Samantha processed the payment, her eyes caught the name Lucas Bennett. It rang a distant bell, oddly familiar, but she couldn't place it. When she returned with the receipt, Lucas handed her a neatly folded bill. "Emma and I would like you to have this. You turned what could have been a difficult evening into something special." "I was just doing my job," Samantha replied, though they both knew she had gone far beyond her duties. Before they left, Emma looked up with hopeful eyes. "If we come back tomorrow, will you be here?" Samantha didn't get a chance to answer. Frank had appeared behind her. "Samantha, in my office, now." Lucas's brow furrowed, clearly displeased with the manager's tone. "Just finishing up with my guests," Samantha replied professionally. "Immediately. Jessica will take care of the rest," Frank snapped, trying to assert his authority. Samantha turned slightly and caught Lucas watching, his expression now thoughtful and focused. No longer just a customer, but someone beginning to calculate something more. In the cramped office that smelled of old coffee and cheap cologne, Frank barked, "Close the door." Samantha stood tall, despite the weariness in her shoulders, a reflex of dignity she refused to abandon. "Is there a problem?" Frank leaned back, a smirk curling on his lips. "You tell me. I just watched you sit at one table for 30 minutes while 7 others waited. I didn't neglect anyone. That child needed help," Samantha said calmly. "What she needs isn't our concern." Frank cut her off. "This is a restaurant, not a rehab clinic." Samantha clenched her fists, fury rising, but she held back, medical ethics still guiding her. Frank continued, "I'm making a note in your file. And speaking of your performance, next week you're down to 2 shifts. 1 lunch, 1 dinner." The room spun. 2 shifts? "Frank, that won't even cover my gas. You know my situation." Frank shrugged, unbothered. "Your mother's prescriptions aren't this restaurant's problem. Jessica's younger, more attractive to customers, and doesn't play doctor. She's getting your shifts." Samantha's voice trembled, but she kept her posture firm. "You know this isn't right." "Noted," Frank said flatly. He opened a drawer and handed her an envelope. "Tonight's tips. Had to redistribute since Jessica covered extra tables." The envelope felt suspiciously light. Samantha didn't need to open it to know she'd been shorted. 10 hours of grueling work. For what? "I'll see you Tuesday," Frank added, already focused on his screen. "Don't be late." In the parking lot, Samantha leaned against her beat-up Honda and finally opened the envelope. $43. Barely half of what she had actually earned. Tears of frustration welled up, but she blinked them back, crying wouldn't buy her mother's medication. 20 minutes later, Samantha unlocked the door to their small apartment. A soft nightlight illuminated the familiar hallway. She peeked into her mother's bedroom. Eleanor was asleep, breathing gently. A medication chart sat neatly marked on the nightstand. In the kitchen, Samantha dropped into a chair, her keys clattering onto the counter. A stack of bills sat under a magnet on the fridge, the electric company's final notice on top. Underneath it, the pharmacy invoice for her mother's MS meds, $800, 0 cents after insurance. A number that now felt like a cliff edge she was about to fall from. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor. "Eleanor had a good day, ate all her dinner, no tremors, left some soup in the fridge for you." A small act of kindness, enough to send fresh tears down Samantha's cheeks. She wondered how long it had been since someone had taken care of her. Without Mrs. Chen, quiet, generous, and always ready to look after Eleanor during Samantha's shifts, Samantha wouldn't have been able to keep working at all. The woman had never asked for anything in return, only occasionally accepting a small bag of groceries. To Samantha, that kindness felt like a quiet miracle. Exhausted, Samantha opened her laptop, planning to search for another job. But the browser still sat on the medical school portal where she had once been a student, once full of dreams. She knew it was foolish to keep revisiting it, like picking at an old wound. But she couldn't help herself. Her student account was still active, a silent courtesy from the school, as if leaving the door ajar just in case she could return. A notification blinked. One unread message from Dr. Winters, her old pediatric advisor. Samantha clicked, her heart racing. Samantha. A prestigious research position just opened in pediatric neurology. Even though you've been away, your name still comes up when we discuss outstanding students. The deadline has passed, but I convinced the committee to review a late application from you. The package includes full tuition and a stipend. Call me. Dr. Winters. The message had been sent 3 weeks ago. Panicked, Samantha opened her inbox and found the official announcement. The deadline had passed just yesterday. She rushed to write an email explaining her situation and pleading for an extension, then closed the laptop, her mind spinning. Even if they granted her the chance, how could she return to school when her mother still needed full-time care? She sat still, head resting on the kitchen table until sunrise. The alarm went off, reminding her to give her mother the morning dose of medication. Quietly, she measured out the pills, her heart heavy with the weight of a decision that seemed to have no way out. A knock at the door startled her. Who would be visiting at 6:00 a.m.? She peeked through the peephole. A deliveryman stood outside, holding a thick envelope. "Samantha Morgan?" he asked. "Yes, signature required." He handed her a clipboard, and once she signed, he gave her a heavy cream-colored envelope, the kind usually reserved for wedding invitations or formal announcements. At the top, Bennett Enterprises, Central Office. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper, embossed and elegant, and a simple business card. Lucas Bennett, CEO, Bennett Restaurant Group. Beneath the logo, a handwritten note read, "The Golden Spoon is one of my restaurants." Samantha froze. Lucas, he wasn't just a customer. He was Frank's boss. A man who could end or transform her entire career with one phone call. She unfolded the letter. The handwriting was firm, formal, but carried a warmth that felt genuine. "Ms. Morgan, your kindness toward my daughter Emma was extraordinary. In just a few short hours, you demonstrated empathy, intelligence, and professional skill that I rarely see, even in those with far more prestigious titles. I would like to discuss an opportunity that I believe could benefit us both. My car will arrive at your address at 9:00 a.m. The driver will wait no longer than 10 minutes. Emma hopes you'll consider this seriously. She has many questions about neural pathways that only a former medical student like you can answer. Sincerely, Lucas Bennett." Samantha's hands trembled. How did he know her address? Why was he doing this? And more importantly, was this a real opportunity, or just another cruel twist of fate? Behind her, her mother called from the bedroom, weak but clear, needing help to start her day. At exactly 9:30 a.m., a sleek luxury car pulled up in front of their aging apartment building. After convincing Mrs. Chin to stay with her mother for a few hours, Samantha changed outfits 3 times before settling on her only professional ensemble, a navy blue suit, the one she'd worn to med school interviews, slightly outdated, but still neat and presentable. The driver, a woman in a crisp uniform, opened the door wordlessly. Samantha slid into the smooth leather seat, her stomach a knot of anxiety and cautious hope. Was this about Frank? Did Lucas know everything? Her unfinished education, the mounting debt? Or worse, was she stepping into a game where she didn't even know the rules? Downtown's towers came into view, rising like a different world compared to the fluorescent lights and greasy floors of the restaurant. The car turned into an underground garage beneath a gleaming glass building. Bennett Enterprises. A rush of unfamiliarity hit her, as though she'd just landed on another planet. "Morgan," the driver finally spoke, her voice calm and steady. "Mr. Bennett is waiting on the 40th floor. The elevator requires a security badge. Here's yours." She handed Samantha a small plastic card and offered a rare smile. "He said you don't need to rush. Take your time." The elevator doors closed, swallowing Samantha in a journey upward, figuratively and literally, one that could change the trajectory of her life. The elevator rocketed skyward, her ears popping with the speed. When the doors opened, she stepped into a vast, minimalist space, lined with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city basking in the morning light. Samantha felt tiny amid this realm of power and glass, like a child wandering into a castle made of crystal. A young receptionist looked up, offering a polite but distant smile. "Ms. Morgan, Mr. Bennett is expecting you. Main conference room, second door on the right." Samantha nodded and walked slowly down the long corridor. The door was slightly ajar. She knocked lightly, then pushed it open, and stopped in her tracks. It was up at the country club and the prod she'd actually had imagined. Instead, there was a small table set for breakfast. Pastries, teacups, neatly folded napkins. Sitting at the table was Emma, beaming, eyes bright. "You really came?" the girl exclaimed, more animated than Samantha had seen her before. "Dad said you might be too busy." "I'm so glad I wasn't." Samantha smiled, her anxiety melting under the warmth of the greeting. "Dad's dealing with something." Emma shrugged, holding a chocolate croissant. "He said to start without him. Grown-ups forget to eat breakfast all the time." She pushed the plate of pastries towards Samantha. "The raspberry one is really good." Samantha sat down, feeling like she'd stepped into a smaller, softer world. A place without Frank, without bills, without fear. Just her and this remarkable little girl. In the daylight, Emma looked even sharper, eyes full of awareness, her small mouth set with an inner strength rare for her age. "How did you know where I live?" Samantha asked gently. "Dad knows a lot," Emma answered matter-of-factly. "He says information is more valuable than money." She took a bite of pastry, then added, "He was sad last night, on the phone for hours." Before Samantha could ask more, the door opened. Lucas entered. Gone was the casual, friendly father from the restaurant. Now he looked every bit the CEO. Refined, sharp, commanding. But his expression softened as he looked at his daughter. "Emma has been a gracious host," he said warmly. "Apologies for keeping you waiting, Ms. Morgan. There was an urgent matter at the Golden Spoon." Samantha stiffened slightly at his tone. There was something about it that made her cautious. "Mr. Bennett, is this meeting about last night?" "Yes and no," Lucas replied, taking a seat. "Emma, would you mind if Miss Angela took you to see the city model on the 38th floor? We'll be up soon." Emma hesitated, then asked directly, "Are you offering her a job?" Lucas chuckled gently, half exasperated, half amused. "Grown-up talk first, sweetheart." A young assistant appeared and gently led Emma out. She cast one last glance back at Samantha, eyes filled with both trust and an unspoken secret. When the door closed, Lucas's demeanor changed completely. Now fully the executive, ready for a serious meeting. "I acquired Golden Spoon about 6 months ago as part of a restaurant group investment package," Lucas began. "I barely paid it any attention until recent reports of declining revenue and customer complaints caught my eye." Samantha sat up straighter, tension creeping into her posture. "What does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Lucas replied, sliding a folder across the table. "Last night was my first time visiting as a customer. What I saw was unacceptable. Not your service. Your service was exceptional, but the way the restaurant is managed." Samantha opened the folder. Inside were financial reports, staff lists, and her own personnel file. She froze when she saw the discrepancies between the reported and actual tip distributions. "Frank has been skimming tips for at least 4 months, Lucas continued, "and you've been his primary target. How long did you stay in Stennisgood?" I didn't answer. "Last think I lost," I said. The results were very clear. Suddenly, the door flew open with a loud bang. Frank stormed in, his face red with fury, followed by Lucas's assistant, visibly alarmed. "You set me up," Frank shouted, pointing at Samantha. "Her and that crippled kid." Lucas stood slowly, his voice calm but sharp. "Mr. Peterson, you're speaking about my daughter and a valued employee. Choose your next words carefully." Frank faltered, finally registering where he was. Inside a high-rise corporate headquarters, facing the man who held his future in his hands. "You don't understand how the system works. Tip sharing is complicated." "Is stealing complicated?" Lucas asked quietly. "What about falsifying time cards or discriminatory scheduling?" Frank's face went pale as Lucas picked up a document. "As of this morning, you are no longer employed by any Bennett Enterprises location. Security will escort you out." Frank tried to protest, but it was useless. Samantha sat in stunned silence, her heart racing. When the room was quiet again, Lucas turned back to her. His expression was unreadable. "Now, Miss Morgan, Or should I say, former med student, Samantha Morgan. Let's talk about your future. Samantha was frozen, her hand still on the folder filled with evidence. How do you know about med school? She asked, barely above a whisper. Lucas smiled gently. After witnessing your interaction with Emma, I had my team do a background check. Your knowledge wasn't something you picked up from YouTube or a few weeks of waiting tables. He gestured for her to sit again. You were in your second year at Monroe Medical School, specializing in pediatrics, top 15% of your class, Hightower Scholarship recipient. Particularly praised for your work with neurologically impaired children. Hearing her past achievements recited so clearly made Samantha's chest tighten. That life felt like a distant dream, their lifetime. She murmured, 3 years, 7 months. Lucas corrected softly. Not quite a lifetime. Your mother's diagnosis came at exactly the time you withdrew, he added gently, sending a chill down Samantha's spine. The accuracy of his knowledge was unsettling. Mr. Bennett, thank you for dealing with Frank, but I'm really not comfortable with how much you've looked into my private life. Lucas nodded respectfully. Fair enough. Let me get to the point. I'm offering you a job. Actually, 3 options, depending on what kind of future you want. Samantha felt the fatigue in her shoulders, but also a spark of curiosity. What kind of job? Option 1, General Manager of Golden Spoon, effective immediately, triple your current pay, full benefits including comprehensive health insurance for your mother. Samantha fell silent. The figure he named was enough to cover everything. The rent, her mother's prescriptions, and even allow them to breathe for once. Option 2, Lucas continued, is a role with Bennett Enterprises' Community Health Initiative. You'd work in underserved areas using your medical knowledge. It pays even more than managing the restaurant. Samantha could hardly believe what she was hearing. Well, me? She almost laughed. Because in just 15 minutes with my daughter? Lucas said, his voice catching slightly. You did what dozens of doctors and therapists couldn't in 18 months. Emma spoke. She laughed. She let you help her without shame. Samantha looked toward the door Emma had left through. The accident? Bargrash. Catherine, my wife, died instantly. Emma survived but suffered spinal damage and neurological issues on her right side. The physical wounds are healing, the emotional ones. He paused, his voice cracking. Until last night, she hadn't spoken to anyone outside the family. You changed that. Emma's extraordinary, Samantha said softly. And here's the third option, Lucas said, sliding another folder toward her. Inside was an acceptance letter from Monroe Medical's re-entry program dated that day, with a full scholarship and living stipend. Paper-clipped to it was Dr. Winter's business card. Dr. Winters and I serve on the Children's Hospital Board together. When I described your interaction with Emma, she immediately knew who you were. The scholarship is still open. One call from me and it's yours. Samantha touched the letter, holding back tears. But it wasn't possible. Her mom needed 24/7 care. No scholarship could solve that. Lucas opened the last folder. We maintain high-standard medical apartments for executives with dependent care needs. One is available under your mother's name with full-time nursing staff and insurance coverage. Samantha backed away slightly, overwhelmed. Why would you do all this? For a stranger. Lucas paused, then spoke in a quiet, raw voice. After Catherine died, I buried myself in work, thinking money and titles would fill the void. But the more I built, the more Emma withdrew. He looked at her. Last night, she laughed. For the first time in 18 months, you gave me that moment, without even knowing who I was. This isn't charity. The medical field lost someone remarkable when you left, and selfishly, I hope you'll be a part of Emma's life, in whatever way you choose. Samantha stood abruptly. I need a moment. Lucas nodded. The balcony is private, outside, 40 stories above the waking city. Samantha tried to absorb what had just happened. The offer was overwhelming. Was it a gift? Or a trap wrapped in kindness? When she returned, Emma was back beside her father. Her face lit up. "Are you going to be my doctor?" Samantha glanced at Lucas, who lifted his hands with a smile. "Apparently, she's been Googling medical schools." Samantha smiled, her first in a long time. She took a deep breath. "Before I say yes, let me be clear," she said. "If I return to med school, it's because I've earned it. Not because you're buying a friend for your daughter or a family doctor." Lucas looked relieved. "I wouldn't have it any other way, and my mother's care must not be conditional on any personal relationship." "It isn't," Lucas assured. "Though Emma will be disappointed." "Very disappointed," Emma echoed. Samantha knelt beside the wheelchair. "In that case, I think I know a med student who'd love to explain neural pathways." Emma's smile was all the answer she needed. 1 year later, the pediatric neurology lecture hall buzzed with students. Samantha sat in the front row, her color-coded notes and tablet arranged with practiced precision. Her crisp white coat bore the Monroe medical emblem she never thought she'd wear again. "Dr. Saunders is brutal with pop quizzes," whispered Lydia, her study partner. "I studied cerebellar cases until 2 a.m., Samantha replied, stifling a yawn. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. "Water therapy with Nurse Rachel today. Feeling stronger." "Dinner at your place?" Emma asked for my apple cobbler. Samantha smiled. The biggest surprise in the year since Lucas entered her life wasn't returning to med school or her mom's recovery. It was the family they had built. Eleanor's accessible apartment sat just below Lucas and Emma's penthouse. Weekly dinners turned into traditions. Movie nights. Story time with Emma curled against Eleanor's lap. "See Meister Morgan." Dr. Winters appeared. "See me after class." Samantha nodded, guessing it was about her research on pediatric stroke rehab, a topic inspired by Emma. After class, she entered Dr. Winters' office to find Lucas waiting. "Samantha?" he greeted. "Emma's fine. Great, actually. I'm here with news." Dr. Winters smiled. "The pediatric rehab center we talked about? Fully funded?" Lucas handed her a thick prospectus. "The Emma Bennett Center for Pediatric Rehabilitation opening in 18 months, next to Monroe Medical." Samantha flipped through designs, therapy room layouts, and integrated treatment plans born from their long talks. "It's really happening," she whispered. "And we need a medical director after your residency," Lucas added. "Someone who understands both science and heart." "You," Dr. Winters added, "will tailor your remaining studies to prepare you. Admin rotations, rehab certifications, research." "But I'm not ready," Samantha protested. "You will be," Lucas said. "This is long-term, your future." Samantha's heart pounded. A year ago, she couldn't afford gas. Now she was being offered a leadership role doctors spend decades chasing. "One more thing," Lucas said, handing her a folded drawing from Emma. 3 stick figures stood in front of a building, labeled Emma's Hospital. Below it, in crooked handwriting, "My family healed me. Now we'll heal other kids too." Tears welled in Samantha's eyes. Emma's journey had been miraculous. From wheelchair to walker to wobbly independent steps. From silence to conversation and vision. "I need time to think," Samantha said. "This is incredible. But I don't want favors." "And I expected you'd say that." Lucas smiled. "Dr. Winters is mentoring the top 3 candidates. You're one of them." Dr. Winters nodded. "The job goes to the best. I believe that's you." Samantha stepped into the hallway, Emma's drawing in hand. Her backpack weighed heavy with textbooks, but her heart felt light. Her phone buzzed. A group text from Emma. "Dad told you about the hospital? Can we celebrate tonight?" Hearing followed by Eleanor. "I'll bring extra cobbler. So proud of you." Samantha stood in the same spot where, a year ago, she'd read Dr. Winters' first email with nothing but hopeless longing. She looked up at the sunlit windows of Monroe Medical, remembering that night at the Golden Spoon when she helped a little girl eat mac and cheese. A small act of kindness, a moment that changed everything. She texted back, "Tonight, I'm bringing ice cream. And Emma, get your markers ready. We've got therapy rooms to design." Some dreams don't die. They just wait for the right moment to return, stronger than ever. And sometimes, the future you deserve finds you when you least expect it.